Good afternoon, everyone. And welcome to day 2 of our quarterly council meeting. Dawn is not as constant.
Wendy?
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted. Okay, this is Wendy Thornley for the record. Okay, for the roll call, we have Evander Davis.
Here.
Vicky Essner. Mary Evilsizer. Here. Edie Formaster.
She's on her way. She'll be here soon.
Thank you. Jennifer Kane.
I'm here.
Thank you. Saber McWhirter is excused absent. Raquel O'Neill is excused absent. Obioma Officer.
I'm here.
Thank you. Kate Ostie. Cheyenne Pasquale is excused absent. Renee Portnell is excused absent. Oh, Raquel is coming in. Linda Vejvoda.
I'm here.
Thank you. Ace Patrick.
I am here.
Julie Weissman Steinbach.
Here.
And Peter Whittingham.
Present and correct, ma'am.
Thank you. And yes, we have quorum.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.
Before we start public comment, Dawn, could you read the paragraph?
I sure will. This is Dawn Lyons. Number 2, public comment. No action may be taken upon a matter raised under public comment period unless the matter itself has been specifically included on an agenda as an action item. To provide public comment telephonically, dial 1-253-215-8782 US Tacoma. When prompted to provide the meeting ID, enter 929-904-1434. The password for phoning in is 707401. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Persons making comment will be asked to begin by stating their name for the record and to spell their last name and provide the secretary with written comments.
Thank you. I now open the forum to any public comment.
This is Dawn Lyons. I actually have a comment from John Rosenlund. Says he is stuck in another meeting and wanted to inform the council that to follow up on his report. Of the 282 consumers in the report, there was 1 consumer who signed a waiver and 281 of them developed a plan with written steps. That was a question I had asked him. So I wanted to follow up with that.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I do. I'm sorry, I can't find my raise hand button. My name is Lori Lutu. I'm with the Aging and Disability Services Division. I just wanted to introduce Autumn and I. I know she shared yesterday about the upcoming conferences.
That's an echo.
See, I apologize. I think because I'm in the space I'm in. Autumn, would you mind sharing? Because I'm going to be getting a lot of feedback on my end.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Autumn Blattman for the record. So I I don't know if Lori and I and Kelsey have been introduced to the group, so we just wanted to formally introduce ourselves to you all. So Lori, Lutu, myself, and Kelsey Meyer, who's on vacation right now, we three are regional coordinators for Aging and Disability Services Division. So our role, well, let me back up. So I serve the Washoe County region. I'm the regional coordinator for Washoe County. Lori is the regional coordinator for Clark County and Southern Nye counties. So really the Pahrump area. And then Kelsey is the regional coordinator for Carson, Douglas, Lyons, Story, Churchill. I think that's it. And so the other areas of the state is covered by our supervisor, Nikki Haig, who is the community engagement manager at this time. But really our positions, they're fairly new. So we're still trying to get all of the details kind of boiled out here. But the main goal of our position is to really educate the community on aging and disability services, convene community partners together to collaborate within the community to serve people, and then also bring back information on gaps in services and where there's areas for improvement regarding aging and disability services, so that we can try to influence policy change or really look as a division on where we can increase access and availability of services. So that's our role. So we're here for you as part of Aging and Disability. If you have any feedback for us, we're happy to take that back to ADSD on your behalf. And yeah, that's our roles. I'm happy to be here and listen in on all the great information you guys are presenting. Is there anything else you wanted to say, Lori?
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? I don't see any here.
This is Wendy Thornley for the record. I just wanted to let the group know that the bill tracking document that was discussed in yesterday's meeting has been posted in the meeting materials. And so it's there if you'd like to look up any bills in the legislative process. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other public comment? I don't see any hands. So we're going to begin with item number 12. And I'd like to invite Julie Taylor from Community Work Incentive Coordinator.
This is Dawn Lyons for the record. Just to clarify, agenda item number 16 is introduction, discussion, and general public question and answer opportunity with Nevada's Work Incentives Planning and Assistance WIPA representative, Julie Taylor.
Hello, everyone. Like they said, my name is Julie Taylor, and I am with the WIPA program, which stands for Work Incentive Planning and Assistance, which is part of the Ticket to Work legislation that's been around since 1999. I work for a nonprofit called Ability Connection Colorado, and we're the ones who have the contract with Social Security to provide these services. I've been doing this since 2004, so getting close to 20 years. And so basically what our agency does is provide work incentive information to people who are on disability and interested in working or are working and need to understand how those earnings will affect the Social Security benefits that they receive. We also explain the basics of how those earnings may affect other benefits they're receiving, such as SNAP or housing or maybe a certain Medicaid program they may be on. So once we verify all their benefits, we put together a benefits analysis, which basically outlines everything, related to their benefits, how to report, all of that information. But then we're also here as long as we're here. So maybe they run into overpayment issues because of work, or they have some other work incentive issues that aren't getting applied to their account. Then we can step in with releases and hopefully talk to somebody at Social Security. It's really hard to get a hold of somebody, but basically that's what we do. And I know that Dawn had sent me a list of questions. Is that what you want me to do now?
Yes, please.
Okay. So one of the first questions I received, somebody wrote, I'd be interested to better understand the marriage penalty on both SSI and SSDI. So as far as SSDI, the marriage doesn't affect that in any way at all. SSI, it will affect the amount of SSI they receive because the spouse's income, a portion of that will be counted as the household income. Now, the other Title II disability it's CDB, it's childhood disability benefits. That one is affected by SSI as well, by marriage as well. And basically, if someone on those disabled adult child benefits marries someone, then they could lose that benefit unless that person they marry is also on a Title II benefit, such as SSDI or the disabled adult child benefits. So that's how marriage will affect someone with that benefit. Okay, so the next question is for youth that are receiving SSI under the age of 18, what should they know about their SSI income for when they become 18 and begin to transition into adulthood? Are there any obstacles they should know about that might cause them to lose SSI when they turn 18? So everyone under the age of 18 that is receiving SSI benefits will go through an age 18 redetermination with Social Security. That will happen between the age of 18 up to the age of 19. They will get a notice in the mail, a written notice from Social Security stating that there will be a hearing set up at their local Social Security office. What will happen at that time is they will do an age 18 redetermination questionnaire. The beneficiary will also be required to sign releases so Social Security can reach out to all of their doctors, clinics, hospitals to verify all of their benefits. The one challenging thing is to be eligible for SSI as an adult, the criteria for disability is a lot more stringent than it is on someone under the age of 18. So a lot of times when people transition and they go through redetermination, there's probably a 50 to 60% chance that they will get denied. And then I recommend to everyone, you always need to appeal that decision, provide more information if available. But that's the process for the age 18 redetermination. Let's see. Okay, the next question, can you give an overview of the pros and cons of an ABLE account? So basically, an ABLE stands for Achieve Better Life Experiences, and it allows people who have another source of income that they want to save and not affect their $2,000 resource limit for SSI Medicaid eligibility. So that's the pro. I mean, if somebody is going to work and they start making quite a bit more money and they're worried that at some point, or maybe they're saving for a large purchase or whatever, and they're worried that that resource limit may come quicker than they had planned, I would recommend setting up that ABLE account. Anyone can go to the National ABLE site to look at pretty much any state, or they can look up the Nevada ABLE program, which the Nevada ABLE program, the website is savewithable.com. That's Nevada ABLE, but they're fairly easy to set up with minimal expense out of pocket. The pro is to keep their eligibility in place for their Medicaid, any Medicaid waiver, or their SSI eligibility. So they have to have been determined eligible, or they have to have their disability condition documented before the age of 22 to qualify for the ABLE program. I'm sorry, 26. I don't know why I said 22. Okay, for youth with disability income getting ready to enter the workforce, whose first jobs may not be stable or long-term, what should they do in preparation of the loss of benefits? So if someone's on SSI, the way Social Security looks at earned income for someone on SSI is basically anything they earn after the $65 earned income exclusion and $20 unearned income. So if they're just on SSI, $85 is excluded. What's left, they take $1 for every two, they would divide whatever. So for instance, somebody was making $685 a month, they would exclude the first 85, the 600 would be divided by 2. So 300 is how much would come off of their SSI payment. There are other deductions. There's impairment related work expenses that can be deducted. There's blind work expenses. These are all, there's 2 or 3 pages of eligible expenses that are listed in the Social Security Red Book that you can get online. One of the big ones is transportation. If it's someone on SSI who's unable to drive and they can't use public transportation and they're having to pay an Uber or a family member, those expenses can be deducted. So that income will have less impact on their SSI payment. So if somebody is eligible for a full SSI payment of $914, they would have to earn over $1,913 to actually zero out that SSI payment. Then if that payment gets zeroed out because of earned income, then they would qualify for, it's a special Medicaid waiver called 1619B, which allows people who lose SSI because of income to qualify to continue with their Medicaid as long as they still meet that $2,000 resource limit, as long as they still use Medicaid and need Medicaid, and their annual earnings are less than $41,200 a year. So that's always one of the biggest questions that people have for me is, I can't lose my SSI. I mean, I can't lose my Medicaid. That's my main concern. So you can see someone can still earn quite a bit of money and still keep their Medicaid under that criteria. SSDI is a little bit different. Medicare is attached to SSDI, and even if they're after the work incentives, their SSDI gets suspended, they will still keep their Medicare up to 93 months, which is almost 8 years after their SSDI is suspended, as long as they still meet the definition of disability, because Social Security will do medical reviews every 3 to 7 years, depending on what they call it a diary, based on their disability. So there's a lot of protections for people to try to work without having to worry about losing. A lot of people come to me assuming right away everything's going to stop, and that is not the case at all. Social Security has these work incentives that allow people to try and see what they're capable of before any benefits are terminated. And once they are terminated, they have another 5-year window, which is called expedited reinstatement, which if they have to quit working because of their condition on record, they can apply for expedited reinstatement. So even after their disability is terminated, they have that 5-year protection as well. So I think that's all the questions that I had on this this letter. Is there other questions?
Julie, this is Peter,
Okay.
member of the SILC. 2 brief questions for you.
Okay.
Would your service extend to helping a member navigate the appeal process or helping that member to prepare for an appeal if it becomes necessary?
Only if it's related to work incentives and working. So we don't assist people with the application process. We don't assist people with the appeal of that decision. We don't assist with, maybe somebody went through a medical review and Social Security is now saying they are no longer eligible. They no longer meet the definition as disability. We don't help with those appeals. So the appeals we help with are anything related to them earning, working, and maybe it shut down their disability when in fact there were work incentives that weren't applied, or they were applied incorrectly, or their earnings were reported incorrectly or were applied incorrectly at the Social Security end. Those are the kind of appeals I'm talking about.
Okay. Did I hear correctly that you're not located in Nevada?
We are in Colorado. We cover Wyoming, Colorado, and Nevada.
Would you be available for remote presentation and Zoom perhaps to an organization? By the way, I represent the Down syndrome organization, and this is a topic that is of concern to so many of our members.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are available, then you could maybe share your contact information in the chat, and we can talk offline.
Okay.
Further about that.
Okay, I could definitely do that.
Thank you much.
Mm-hmm.
Havander Davis, for the record.
Okay. Then after you, Ace.
Okay, thank you. As a person with a disability who is blind, are there different, I know there's different regulations for working. How much would a person who was on SSDI be able to make before they start to bother with their Social Security check, and how much would it be for a person who was on SSI who was blind?
Okay, so when someone's on SSI who meets the definition of statutory blindness, then there are blind work expenses that can be deducted after they do their calculation. And when it comes to blind work expenses compared to impairment related work expenses, there are a lot of things that can be deducted, even the taxes that are taken out of the check. Normally it's gross pay. Taxes are not an expense that can be deducted, but if somebody meets the definition for blind as far as Social Security is concerned, then they can subtract taxes, pretty much anything, actually. Now, they don't have a higher limit. They don't receive more payment or anything, but somebody on SSDI who meets the definition of statutory blindness, the SGA limit is much higher. For instance, the SGA limit this year is 1,470, but for someone who is considered statutory blind by Social Security definition, that SGA limit is $2,460 that they can earn up to and still keep their SSDI payment. Does that answer your question?
That definitely answered my question. Thank you so much for all
You're
your
welcome.
information you helped.
You're welcome.
Ace.
Hi, thanks for your presentation. Regarding the ABLE account,
Mhm.
did I hear you correctly in saying that you have to be considered disabled and on disability before the age of 26?
That is correct.
So do you see that changing at all to include those who have become disabled after that age?
It's been on the books to change that for a couple years now, but it still hasn't been approved. I think that will happen at some point, but right now it's still, you have to have been diagnosed before the age of 26.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions?
Cindy has her hand up.
Okay,
Oh,
audio now
sorry.
unmuted.
That's okay. I wasn't sure if I was able to speak since I'm public, but thank you. If you could please explain what SGA is, number one, and the other thing, what describe the responsibility for the recipient when that person is working. What kinds of things do they have to do to make sure Social Security is aware of their working and their IRWI and that sort of thing? Thank you.
Okay. So SGA stands for Substantial Gainful Activity, and that is a level that Social Security uses to determine if someone can continue to receive their disability payment. That SGA level changes every year. That's what SGA stands for. Now, as far as you were asking, can you repeat that other part?
Okay, audio now unmuted.
Right, when somebody's working, so let's say I'm working, I have a developmental disability and I'm making $70 a week. And I'm just rehearsing this for the people who haven't had experience with this. I have to send my stubs in, I have to send in to Social Security my IRWI. I guess that's what I would be asking for your explanation.
So my recommendation, and this is also Social Security's recommendation, is that if somebody's on disability and working or seriously considering work, that they call the Ticket to Work helpline. And I can give you all that number. That number is 866-968-7842. That,
can you put that in the chat?
yes,
It looks like Jennifer Kane just did. Thank you, Jennifer.
She did. Thank you, Jennifer. So what will happen is when you call that Ticket to Work helpline, those reps have access to some basic information in your Social Security record. It'll tell us what type of disability you're on. It won't tell us your disability condition, but it'll verify your social, date of birth, all that kind of stuff, address, what county. Then what happens is that Ticket to Work referral will be sent to our agency. And then our agency, I'm actually the lead CWIC, so I would disperse that to whatever CWIC is covering that area. Then what would happen is that CWIC, which Community Work Incentive Coordinator, that's what our job titles are, we would reach out to that beneficiary, let them know how we can help them, explain the type of verification we need. If they've already started working, let them know how they need to report that work, whether it's SSI or SSDI. There's a lot of questions that we'll ask that person to find out if they need to report ASAP because they've been working for 3 months or they are starting work in 2 weeks. So it really depends on the kind of feedback we get from the beneficiary. Once we get all that together, we will meet with them again and we'll put together that benefits analysis. And that way they'll have everything in writing, but it'll give, depending on the type of disability, they'll get different options on how to report that income, how it's going to affect them, just everything they need to know. So that's why I'm saying the first thing that someone needs to do if they're on SSI, SSDI, disabled adult child benefits, widowers disability benefits, call that Ticket to Work helpline. And that way we will get the referral directly from the helpline. Information will be verified. And it just, I think it's a way of Social Security tracking how many people are actually, looking for this kind of information and working just to make sure people don't get in, because it's better to be proactive than reactive, because we get people all the time who didn't know the rules, didn't understand, and now all of a sudden they have $100,000 overpayment. Then we have to backtrack and try to figure out how to help them appeal that, if there even is an appeal available. So we're here to provide this information so the beneficiary can be proactive in making sure that they do everything they're supposed to, so they don't get into a large overpayment situation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Linda, and then
Thank you. I'm just curious because I am a survivor benefit.
Mhm.
And I get survivor benefits from my husband, so I'm a widower. I didn't know the rules, and so last year I did not file my taxes. Will I get in trouble for that?
Are you on survivor's benefits or widow? Disabled?
Widower, I'm a widower, so I'm
Oh.
on survivor benefits.
Okay, so anybody on Social Security, doesn't matter, retirement, whatever, after you make a certain amount, part of your Social Security could be taxed. For a single person, I think that limit is around 25,000. So if you were to make 30,000, then a small portion of your Social Security will be taxed.
I made under that, so I wasn't sure whether I should still file or not. And but I mean, I'll go to a tax person this year, but I wasn't for sure. And I know that it differs a little bit because of being the widower, getting Social Security from the widow from my husband's portion. But also another question is that you were talking about the children with disabilities. Okay, so it doesn't pertain to me. It pertains to a client of mine. So this client, her father passed away.
Okay.
However, she worked outside the home, and he gave her a portion to help her live. Okay, now he's gone. It hasn't been too long. And she was trying to get her father's death benefits for survivor. But they told her, because she has a work history, that she was not entitled to those benefits.
Okay, so someone could have enough credits under their own social to receive benefits. And if it's a small amount and they're eligible, they could also possibly draw on a parent's account. So it really depends on how many credits she has in, what she qualifies for. Because I've seen people receive disabled adult child benefits as well as benefits under their own social.
That's what I told her. I said,
Yeah.
I think that she could get a portion of her father's benefits, but I wasn't sure. And I'm so glad you're talking about that stuff today, because I don't want to mislead my clientele because of the fact that I wasn't educated enough. And truly, you are a godsend. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, and it's unfortunate though, if somebody goes to Social Security, you send somebody over there and they get an answer that they don't think sounds right or is incorrect, ask them to talk to a supervisor. Like I said, I've been doing this almost 19 years, and I mean, I can tell you, which is really sad, how much wrong information beneficiaries are getting from Social Security. And it's really hard to say, well, that's not true, but here's the actual rule. And, they're like, well, I just had this happen last week that two different people said, well, this is what Social Security told me. And I said, I'm sorry, but I can show you the rule in Social Security print that that's not correct.
Right. And when I went and took this young lady to the Social Security office and they told her that, I was like, that doesn't sound right. But they also told me, when I tried to ask about collecting 100% of my husband's benefits after I turned 65, they told me, no, you're already locked in. And I said, I don't think that's right. I said, after I turn 65 or retirement age, I am entitled to 100% of his earnings. And she goes, no, you're already locked in. You don't get any more. And I get up to 75% of his wages right now. Is that true?
You know, because I don't deal with the retirement side of things, I can't tell you 100%, but I've seen people get retirement on their own or a widower's benefit,
Right.
as well as drawing on deceased spouse. So if it doesn't make sense to you, then ask to talk to somebody else, because unfortunately, I hate to say it, but there's a lot of wrong information that goes. So I always tell people, if that doesn't make sense to you, ask to talk to somebody else. I mean, because, and I hate to say it, but it's true. I get a lot of people that tell me this is what Social Security said. And then for me to try to convince them differently, I said, well, if you believe that is what's going to happen, then you're going to end up with a large overpayment. You're going to be back to me in a year because you think you have a new 9 months or a new trial period. You don't. So
All right. Thank you very much, Julie.
you're welcome.
Yes.
Hi, thank you. I thought of another question that I
Oh.
had for you. Regarding SSDI
Uh-huh.
and the reviewing, you said they review every 3 or 5 or 7 years or something like that. Is that correct?
If you're on, yeah, they'll do a medical review. If you're on SSDI, you'll be on a cycle, either 3, 5, or 7, depending on your disability. But if you're on SSI, they'll do a review every year, not necessarily a medical review, but they'll review income, because they look at household income. They want to make sure that you still fall under those guidelines. So yeah, you could be in a
Okay.
3, 5, or 7 year cycle. And the only thing that protects you from those medical reviews is if you are working with an employment network who has your ticket assigned or registered.
Okay, got it. And when you hit the age of retirement,
Mhm.
and that SSDI turns into Social Security, do those reviews then stop because you're no
Yes.
longer on disability, but you're on Social Security?
That is correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
they
I
will,
understand.
yeah, they'll
Uh,
automatically switch you to full retirement, and you may not even know it because it'll be about the same amount. You may get a letter 6 months later and say, we switched you to full retirement when you were 66 and 10 months or whatever. But yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's what I understand. You're 60, it's a weird.
Yeah, if you were born
55.
between, right, if you were born between 58 and 60, your retirement is somewhere between 66 and 67. Anybody born after 1960, your full retirement age is 67 at this point.
Got it. And so you don't it's possible you won't be receiving the same amount under Social Security that you were receiving under disability?
If you were on SSDI, it's likely around the same amount. It
Okay.
could be more if maybe you were working the last 5 or 10 years, and those are some of your higher years of income. It could be a little bit higher because Social Security, the way they do the SSDI is similar to the way they do full retirement, and they look at 35 years of income. And so they count the top highest years. So if you've been on disability and you were making, but you were still getting your disability, and maybe some of those are some of your higher income years, then yeah, it's possible it'll be at least that amount, maybe a little bit more, just depending.
Okay, great. Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Oh, the audio now unmuted.
Thank you again. Thank you to the Julies. Julie, this is really important because I think this working is kind of one of the best kept secrets for our young people.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you're the right person, but maybe you could tell us who the right person or organization to go to for this. My own personal experience was when my son turned 14, I met a very wise Social Security person in Chicago, having coffee, and he said, if your son earns 6 credits by the time he's 24, he will, after 24 months, qualify for Medicare. and he has Down syndrome. And my single most important focus was good health care.
Right.
So we got that kid cutting grass and doing whatever. And by the time he was 21, he earned the 6 credits. And I think that's really an important thing for people to know, the credits or quarters or whatever we're calling them right now, and how we're earning them and to that degree. Are CWICs the people who tell us that, or who do we need to get on this Zoom to tell us that sort of thing? And
Well,
thank you.
as far as, so anybody under the age of 30, the required credits are definitely less than someone over 30. So to qualify, when you're over 30, you need 40 credits, which is 10 years of paid employment. To count as a quarter or a credit, it's around, I don't have that in front of me, like 12 or 1300 in a quarter. So it doesn't take long to get a quarter. Even if you're earning $400 or $500 a month in a quarter, that's going to be enough to count as a credit for that quarter. But the younger you are, the less credits you need to qualify. So that is true. I just don't have those numbers in front of me because it's not a work incentive. It's just, and I always recommend anybody who's starting to work to set up a Social Security My account. When you set up a Social Security My account, you can log in there and it'll tell you all your years of employment. It'll tell you all your years of earnings. It'll tell you if you have enough credits to qualify for disability or Medicare. So setting that up online account is the best way to find out what's in the system under your social. And it's really easy to do. It's literally takes 10 minutes. I think the hardest part people get frustrated with, if you get locked out, you forget your password or your username and you get locked out, it's like torture trying to get it reset. So that's probably the most frustrating part of setting up that account. But there's so much information. And even I recommend anybody that's on disability to set it up because that's the best way to report your earnings. Once Social Security has your employer info updated, you can log into your Social Security account, put your earnings, you upload the information in the system, you get confirmation. So 6 months down the road, if Social Security says, we don't have any of your pay stubs, yes, you do, they're in the system. I've had people drop off pay stubs for 2 years and Social Security said, we never got any of them. And so doing it electronically is far the best way to report earnings. The initial report has to be to them, call them, go in, whatever, because they'll want to know the employer name, address, all that kind of stuff. Once they get that updated, you can log into your Social Security account. There's a place that says report your earnings. You click on that. It should say your new employer, like Safeway or Walmart or whatever. If it says no employer listed and you called like 2 months ago, that means no one has updated your file. You need to get back on the phone and say, hey, I've been working 2 months. You still haven't updated my employer. Hopefully that'll get somebody to get in there and get it updated. They have to get the EIN number from that employer to do that. So if you don't provide that, then they'll contact the employer and that takes a little bit longer. But honestly, the EIN number is already on a lot of pay stubs. So.
Raquel.
Thank you. Hi, Julie. This is
Hi.
Raquel O'Neill. I just had a clarification question for you.
Okay.
Earlier, you were talking with Havander about Social Security disability and blindness.
Mhm.
And you had mentioned that for somebody who is statutory blind can receive up to 24, I think you said $2,460 a month
They can
while working.
earn. They can earn that
Earn.
much, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Earn that amount while working. And the clarification I was going to ask is when completing the deductions, does that include the deductions or do the deductions affect that at all?
So if somebody is on SSDI, that SGA limit of 2460, then impairment related work expenses apply. And they only apply, let's say this person makes $2,500 a month. So they're over by $40. But an impairment related work expense could be like co-pays to doctors, co-pays for prescription, just any expenses they need in order to work. Those can be deducted to bring the countable back below the 2460. Now, the blind work expenses are for people who are on SSI. And that pretty much includes pretty much everything there, the taxes that are being taken out. So the way it works there is, remember I said they have the income exclusion of 65 plus 20, so $85. Then they take $1 for every 2 earned. So if they were earning $685, $300 is how much would come off of their SSI. But if they have $200 in blind work expenses, they'll subtract that from that 200, only 100 comes off the SSI. So those blind work expenses are a big help for someone on SSI who is working. There's just the blind work expenses apply to SSI, the impairment related work expenses apply to SSDI, and they're not as, you can't use like the taxes and all of that when it comes to impairment related work expenses. It's when somebody's on SSI and meets the definition of statutory blindness. And the reason I say meets the definition is people will call me and say, I have a visual impairment, that's why I get disability. So one of the things we require is a benefits plan inquiry needs to be received from Social Security. That will tell us if, yes, they are considered statutory blind or no. If it says no, then they could still be getting disability because of their visual impairment, but they don't meet the definition of statutory blindness. So that BPQI is a huge, important form that we need, because we can't just assume that someone has that higher SGA limit because they have a visual impairment, but they don't meet their definition of statutory blindness. And please don't ask me what that is. There's all these technical terms on eyesight, which I have no clue. So that's why that BPQI that I mentioned is so important, because I get people all the time and say, I received disability because of visual impairment. Then I get the BPQI and it says, no, they're not considered statutory blind. So they don't get that higher limit.
Is there anyone from the public besides or in addition to city who has questions for Julie?
I know it's a lot of information that, I mean, that's just a little piece of the work incentives, and that's why these are just general rules. Everybody has a different situation. There's work incentives like the blind work expenses, the impairment related expenses, there are subsidies that could be in play. Those are the kind of things after we interview people that we see could be very helpful that they wouldn't have even known to ask about because they didn't even know they were a thing. And unfortunately, Social Security doesn't just volunteer this and say, hey, you should have a subsidy in place. And if you don't know to ask, you don't know. So that's why we're here, to provide people with all the work incentive information that apply to them, to make sure they're getting everything that they're eligible for while working, and trying to improve their life and have it maybe impact them less financially or in the pocketbook, I should say.
Are there any more questions for Julie?
And you all have, I think, Dawn, right? Everyone has my contact info.
This is Dawn Lyons. They do.
Okay.
And if I guess I can always resend it out just to make sure as well. And something I just want to throw in, it's a little off topic, but if any, just to remind everyone, if they could introduce themselves and speak their name before they start talking, that would be really helpful for minutes and for the cart. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time, Julie. This is so informative.
Well, I appreciate all your time. And like I said, just don't hesitate to ask or email me with general questions. I can't discuss a specific beneficiary without a release, but you can either have them contact me. But like I said, if you have a client or you know somebody who's working or wants to work and doesn't understand all of this, because it can be overwhelming, just have them call the Ticket to Work helpline. That's the easiest way to get to me. And that way it just makes our process easier because Social Security does verify. Even though we have to have a Social Security clearance and everything, we have no access to any Social Security records. So that's the part that probably takes the longest, is getting all that verification together. So
This is Dawn Lyons. Let me also just say, Julie, to everyone here, your contact information is in our reference list on our website all the time, and you're right at the top of the list. So really easy to find. If anyone's interested, just go to our website, nvsilk.com. So, and again, as Julie said, thank you so much for being here and for answering our questions today.
sure.
And I really,
Bye.
I really like your name.
I like your name too. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye. Okay. So now we're going to go back to something we skipped yesterday. Raquel, could you give us any updates on the Nevada State RIA Council?
Yes, hi. This is Raquel O'Neill, a member of the Independent Living Council, as well as the chair of the Nevada State Rehabilitation Council. Thank you for asking for an update. We have just completed an exercise in our state planning on the 11th. And so we appreciate Don Lyons, who came to participate with us for crafting and looking at our state goals for vocational rehabilitation. And during this time, I think we have done our best as a collective group to try to draft some goals that make sense, that directly look at outcomes. And I think that the council is open to looking at other outcomes as created as different goals. Before there seemed to be goals that were kind of sandwiched with A's and B's and C's instead of directly speaking to the outcomes. And so sometimes crafting goals can be very challenging with a lot of minds together. But I think the exercise was very productive. I look forward to another draft of the goals, as we had provided recommendations during the state planning at our upcoming meeting in September, where the council will do some more looking at the goals and then voting. So if anyone is interested in the state plan and wants to weigh in on public comment for that, that will be at the September meeting. As far as other items goes, there still have been some updates with our surveys regarding satisfaction of vocational rehabilitation. And the trending concern has always been nationally and state, of course, is about communication and access to counselors, communication with counselors. And that is something that administration has stated They are definitely wanting to improve. They see it as a challenge and they want to make it better. They're looking at a couple of different ways to increase communication between clients and counselors and to assist with clarifying things and making communication better. So we're looking at that as a trend and continuing to watch it and wanting to make sure that it improves over time. I think everybody is invested in wanting that to get better, which is a good thing. And trying to think if there's any other particular updates. I can't think of any at the moment, but Dawn, if you can think of some too, that's kind of where we are at right now with the council and looking at specific items.
Yeah, this is Dawn Lyons. Thanks, Raquel, for that overview. I was excited to be a part of that state plan group and the planning group, and I'm looking forward to the September meeting. I wanted to just mention, I know this is a little bit, I don't think it's off topic necessarily, but it doesn't necessarily have to do with the goals or the planning or anything like that. But I know that the governor's office reached out to me to ask who on our SILC is represented in the Nevada State Rehab Council, and I gave them your name. And on the Rehab Council site, it still shows that it's vacant. So I don't know if you need to talk to them, let them know, or
I don't know. Okay, yes, I will definitely talk to them. I will definitely. Yeah, it's interesting. They sent me the formal appointment letter because I was reelected. And so I was sent the formal appointment letter by the governor's office in April. So that's interesting. Fun stuff. So continuation of communication issues, right? We'll get it together. But thank you for passing that along, and I will definitely make sure that we get that updated. Speaking of vacancies, though, we have welcomed a few new folks to the council, and it's exciting to have the council grow and have more participation, but there are a few more vacancies. So if you are interested, especially if anyone knows of anyone or who is a person who represents the Native American 121 tribes, we would really appreciate some support from the tribes. And so we're still seeking to fill that vacancy. It's been a long-standing one. But there are other vacancies as well. If you want to go to the boards and councils website and take a look at the Nevada State Rehabilitation Council.
Any other questions for Raquel?
Okay, well, I'll look forward to updating you guys again later. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Raquel. Okay. So next we're going to talk about consequence schedule regarding the state plan created in the work group. And I'm going to ask Dawn to speak on this topic.
thank you, Julie. This is Dawn Lyons. It's actually agenda number 17. I know you read it, but I just wanted everybody to be able to follow along here. So the topic was the discussion and make possible schedule recommendations regarding the state plan for independent living work group, or the SPIL work group as we call it, and the town hall plans for federal fiscal years 25 through 27. That's the plan that we have to have completed and submitted to ACL for approval by the end of June. And so it's important that we get this process going. As you all know, it's a getting to be a well-oiled process for the SILC, as I've been through this process one time before, so I know what it entails. And so what we usually do is we have a town hall meeting at the beginning to gather public and stakeholder input on what kind of goals the SILC should put into their next state plan for those 3 years. And then after that, I'll draft something based on the data that we've received and the comments made at the town hall. And then the work group will meet and finesse that draft and really go through it very detailed and make sure that we have all the verbiage in there that we want, that we're addressing all the correct issues, and that we have the right plan in place. And then after all that, we have one more final town hall so that the public and stakeholders can review that final draft, and they can give us more input on it in case we forgot something or in case they have more input that's valuable for us to include. So that one final, it's like a kind of like how the government usually does their final public comment before implementing any kind of document or procedure. That's kind of what that last town hall is for. And then the work group will meet one more time if necessary before we go ahead and present that final draft with all the input and the totally final draft, I should say, to the SILC. And then the SILC will go ahead and vote for approval. If they approve it, then we can submit it to ACL, and hopefully that would be on time. So I did have a timeline that I had in mind, and I submitted it as a meeting material. Let me see if I can find it in my papers here. Here we go. So my suggestions, just so that we can have as much participation as possible. Some are in the evening and some are during the workday, just so that we can have different schedules be able to participate. So if they can't participate in one meeting, they might be able to participate in another. But we can always change the schedule. It's just a proposal. So I have the initial town hall for public input on Zoom for Thursday, August 10th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And then I have the first spill work group Monday, October 23rd from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. The second one on Monday, December 11th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. You know what? I did put them all in the evening. I forgot my train of thought. Sorry. So I initially was thinking I would vary them, but for the sake of making sure that people could continue to show up, I decided to go ahead and go with the evening hours because that seems to be better for people who work during the day. And I thought that's so important to get as much information as possible from everybody who's affected. We don't want to leave out anybody who has to work. So the next date would be Monday, February 12th from 5:30 to 7:30. And then final town hall on Monday, March 25th from 5:30 to 7:30. The final town hall being Monday, March 25th from 5:30 to 7:30. And then if we need to have an extra spill work group on April 1st from 5:30 to 7:30. Does anybody not like that schedule? Does that sound like it'll work for anyone who wants to participate? What do you guys think? And I'd like to also open this up to any public members who have interest in being a part of the spill work group as well, because we want as much input as possible.
This is Ace. That works for me. Those would be perfect times and dates for me from from what I can see. Thanks for doing that, Dawn, putting all that together. I'm looking forward to doing this again.
Dawn, are these the hearings? Correct me if I'm wrong. These are the hearings where we want input from the public, right?
Two of them are. So the one on August 10th and the one on March 25th are.
Okay. Can we have in-person meetings?
That is some input I was hoping I would get from you guys. Right now, I just had it tentatively scheduled for Zoom meetings because it seems like more people can participate that way. But we can certainly, it's up to you guys. We can do an extra town hall that's in public somewhere. The problem that we've come across in the past with having public town halls is that it's difficult to have both a Zoom and a public meeting at that time. So we then have to have different locations scheduled and have multiple town halls. Whereas on Zoom, more people seem to be able to participate. But if you wanted to have both, if you think that there's a certain population, like in the rurals where they don't have as good of internet connection, and you think they would participate better if it were in person, I am open to those suggestions. And if you have a specific place, date, and time in mind, that I'm open to that as well, because we do want as much information as possible.
Well, Dawn, I do have a gentleman that I am very good friends with that does both in person and Zoom, that could set a meeting up in Carson City very easily. I would also like to have an in-person meeting in the Elko area because internet is not really readily available out in that area. And if we are trying to reach those rural areas, it might be better to do it in person. I'm sure I can round somebody up in the Elko area who could do Zoom as well as in person. And I'm sure we can probably do the one here in Carson at the local library.
This is Dawn Lyons. I am definitely, I definitely think it's a good idea. We can set something up in Carson City and in Elko. Do you want to do that for both public town halls, for the first one and the last one? Or do you want to just do that for one of those?
I believe that, this is Linda for the record, I believe that it would be better for us to have both with the people and with the Zoom. Then that way it's getting across to both areas to be able to have discussion and open comments.
This is Dawn Lyons. I agree with you, Linda. I think that Dee Dee makes a good point, and it was something I had considered. I do want to keep them separate, the Zoom and the in-persons, because it's very difficult to facilitate those public discussions when there's both formats at the same time. So we can do a Zoom separately. I think it will be more effective that way, and we'll be able to get all the input better that way. But we can definitely hold a public meeting in person in Carson and in Elko for both of those town halls.
This is Linda for the record. I think that maybe we can talk to Elko about using their town hall and maybe meeting there, and then it'll give it a better wide variety of being both out and in town, so that we can have a speaking engagement there. Then that way questions can be, if we do it enough in advance, then maybe we can get more people. With our worker out there, we can get her to post it so that it's more available, ready for people out there in that area.
And what about the Pahrump area?
Yeah, this is Dawn Lyons. We could also do, you know, and I have to say that usually we're very restricted as far as our budget goes for all the, you know, because we will need CART and ASL for the Zoom, and then we'll need ASL providers in person as well to make sure that everyone, it's accessible for everyone. So those are expenses that are often difficult for us to include in our budget because of our small budget during the year. But this year we do have a little bit of extra funding that we can use towards that. So I definitely think we can have one in Pahrump as well. I guess the biggest question I have is when are we going to fit these in? Because I'll have to travel for some of these, and I need to make sure that I can coordinate it with other conferences and other things going on during the year.
When does it have to be done?
The first town hall Zoom I have it scheduled for August 10th. And then the second one, I have it for March 25th. So we want to keep them around the same dates, but if you want to help me coordinate, Dee Dee and Linda, if you want to help me coordinate those 3 locations with those places, like if I'm sure I could reach out to what is it, the coalition in Pahrump. I'm sure I could reach out to them and ask if we could have it at their community center. And then if you want to find out about Elko and Carson, where it would be best, and we can find out what times and dates work okay for them, and then we can work around their schedule as well.
So do we have a timeline when we have to have all of these things done?
Yes, so this is Dawn Lyons for the record. The SILC needs to approve the final draft at their April meeting.
Okay, so we have till before the April meeting. Okay. That kind of gives us a timeline. That's what I was trying to get out of you. If you cannot be there in person out there in the rural areas, I'm sure that Linda and I can cover you if you're comfortable with that. So whatever's good for you, but we'll get together and put our heads together, seeing as I'll be with you next week. And we'll try to get this coordinated.
Yeah. Okay, is there anyone else who has any suggestions or thoughts or ideas about our planned timelines for our meetings for Spill Work Group and town halls?
This is Ace again. I think if you between you, Linda and Dee Dee, and arranging, you know, in person out in the rurals, that I think that's a great idea. And I also think it's very important to keep the Zoom as well. So you know, just depending on what you can fit in, but I'm all for, you know, whatever we need to do to get as much input as possible.
Thank you, Ace. This is Dawn Lyons. Is there anybody, including anyone that's here from the public, that has any thoughts on this, or, you know, if you'd like to express interest in being part of the work group, and I could write your name down now so I could include you in the invitations for the Zooms. Anyone? Stephen?
This is Dee Dee, Formaster. For the record, I'll be happy to be on the work group.
This is Ace. Dawn, are you including all SILC members in on the work group, or just those that are saying yes?
All SILC members will be invited, but if you want to specify your interest now, that would be awesome.
Okay, well, you know, I've always, you know me. So put my name down, please. Thank you.
This is Linda Dakota for the record. I would love to be on the work group.
This is Julie for the record. this is my first skill. And so I'd be curious to see how this works. So yes,
So this is Don Lyons. Julie, you're actually assigned
I
as
am
chair.
inside. Yeah, I'm well aware.
This is Peter. Don, please include my name as well. The work group.
Okay. Is there anyone that's out in the public as well that would like to be a part of the spill work groups that help us draft and craft our next state plan for independent living? Mary? See your hand
Yes,
up.
I would like to be part of the group. I know you're going to invite all SILC members, but I'd just like to voice my interest. Thank you.
Can't do it without you, Mary. Okay, and anybody is welcome to those meetings, and they, of course, even if you don't receive a calendar invitation, or if you weren't here today and you're interested and you didn't get that information into us on time, those meetings will be posted on our website, just like we do all our other meetings according to open meeting law. So you can always find those there. And our meeting material today has our dates on it, but I will update it later as soon as I have the dates that are in person.
Any other discussion about this? Let's feel. So George, could you? I should. My agenda gets screwed up. But could you speak on the next item?
Absolutely.
What number is it?
This is Don Lyons. It's agenda item number 18, discussion and make possible recommendations regarding federal fiscal year 24 SILC subawards.
Yeah. Thank you. Could you speak on this?
Yes. So this is Don Lyons again. We received 2 applications this year instead of 3. So we received an application from Rural Center for Independent Living, and we received an application from Southern Nevada Center for Independent Living. And I included those narratives that explain what they'd like to use those subawards for and how much they're for on the meeting materials. So hopefully you've had a chance to review those. And then for those of you who didn't have the chance to review them, the Southern Nevada Center for Independent Living, we're subawarding a $22,000 limit for them to continue with they'd like to continue with their scholarship program to send people to Nickel to create youth leaders or to encourage youth leadership. And then for the Rural Center for Independent Living, as they've mentioned before, they've opened satellites in Elko, and they'll be visiting Pahrump quite a bit. And so they're going to continue with their housing efforts and transportation, peer support, and just providing rural services for independent living as well. And so all of that is included in their narrative. And I would like to, that one was for $20,000 as it was last year. But since we only had one application for the Part C Centers for Independent Living, we have an additional $22,000 that we can either quickly put out another notice of funding opportunity for, or we can choose to designate the extra money, maybe split it between the 2 who applied if they want it, and then they can just revise their applications. Or is there something else that the SILC would like to do in regards to that additional 22,000? Would we like to create a new notice of funding opportunity for the community that has to do with, because technically we really want to support independent living. And the programs that are out there don't necessarily support the independent living philosophy, other than the Centers for Independent Living and the Independent Living Program. Another suggestion that I have is that we include the 22,000 towards the Independent Living Program, even though they're getting additional monies from ARPA and for to close the wait list, because we reduced the amount that we're offering to them this time, but we can incorporate the some of that amount towards that program as well. So I guess I just need a discussion on how we would like to handle the remaining 22,000.
This is Havander Davis for the record. Do we know, you said that was the what is that, the other Center for Independent Living, they don't want the money? Is that what happened? They didn't apply for it?
This is Dawn Lyons. That's correct, Evander. We did not receive an application from them.
Okay, so the other question is Mary and Dee Dee willing to revise their request to split the money? Is that something they want? Or, I mean, before we have that discussion, we need to know, is that even something they want?
This is Dee Dee Formaster for the record. We would love to have the extra money because we do not get regular payments like the other CILs do for operating costs and for assistance for our clients. We certainly need the help, especially with stretching out and reaching out to the rules like we are. I certainly would be more than happy to revise anything we need to revise to be able to receive extra money. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Ace. I was thinking along the same lines as Havander. If both Mary and Dee Dee are willing to do a revision, and if Mary even wants half of the money, I would tend to go towards shifting that money towards the two of them, because I know it definitely Dee Dee, it would be helpful, and I'm sure Mary, because she applied, then I'm sure she can use it too. I mean, I'd like to hear from Mary as well.
Yes, Mary.
Yes, thank you. I am looking at this, and I am surprised our sister center, Northern Nevada, didn't apply. When I last talked to them, they had every intention of applying. I do know that their operations manager is out of the country, and that's the individual that usually takes care of it. And that the executive director right now is also unavailable. I didn't reach out to them. I don't know, Dawn, we usually don't reach out when there's a NOPO, but my opinion is with the funding, if we did get the opportunity to revise it, again, we truly value developing youth leadership, but the major problem that's indigenous to our community is housing. If we had the opportunity to revise, SNCIL would revise towards funding similar to what we had with the TASHA grant. That's where we do what we can to help people, with the deposits, with getting into housing. As I said yesterday, the big problem that we have is we're getting to the point where we can't find housing. So maybe use that funding and finding even more creative ways to find housing for individuals that they can afford to live in, especially the individuals in the nursing homes that would like to transition, but can't, not because we can't find the funding for the deposit, for the rent, or everything else, but because we can't find available units. So that's my 2 cents worth, and I would be willing to revise. Thank you, Ace.
This is Dawn Lyons. Thank you, Mary. And thank you, Dee Dee, for your input, and Ace for your question to them. I appreciate that being clarified that you are both willing to revise in that regard. And I'm more than willing to wait for that revision to come in and send you both a revised notice of funding opportunity that matches that amount. So, and to speak on Northern Nevada Center for Independent Living, they did not inform me personally of any intention or non-intention. I know that in federal fiscal year 23, they weren't able to utilize all the funding. Or at least they weren't able to submit the paperwork required to be reimbursed for all the funding. And so I believe they weren't really thrilled with that. And there was nothing I could do to help them more. As you know, I send out reminders. I send out requests with the specific dates required by Aging and Disability Services, but Aging and Disability Services manages our subawards. So it's by their rules, as you know, and there's not a whole lot more I can do to help people if they don't get paperwork in on time or with the right amounts. So all I can say is I just kind of assumed that they didn't want to move forward since federal fiscal year 23 went so poorly for them. But I could be wrong. I just don't think we have the time to wait to find out that answer anymore.
Thank you. I appreciate the input.
Yeah, this is Ace again. So I don't, what other council members feel, but my feeling is that with the revision that Dee Dee and Mary are willing to do, I would like to see that split up between the two of them and utilized in that way, since even though these other programs are really important and IL, independent living, I mean, they're really, really important, but also too, I know one of our missions with the SILC, at least, when I was chair and since I've been serving on the SILC, is that we really want to support the centers as much as possible with these NOFOs. And so I know that, in many discussions, that they were our first concern for receiving money. And so that's how I feel about it. That's my 2 cents worth. Thank you both, Dee and Mary, for being willing to do that.
Do we need a motion?
This is Dawn Lyons. I would just like to read Jennifer Kane's input as well that she put in the chat into the record. She stated, I would not support putting it back out for another round of applications. We have 2 applicants who are willing to submit revisions, and so she agrees. And so I guess it sounds like everybody is on the same page here. So maybe I could get a motion to approve the 2 applicants resubmit revisions with the revised notice of funding opportunity.
This is truly going to time up for the record. I think that's my shit. Do we hear a second?
This is Ace. I'll second that.
Any more discussion? Since it's about money, I'm gonna ask Wendy to do a roll call, please.
This is Wendy Thornley. Here is the roll call vote. Okay, Vander Davis,
Aye.
I do not see Vicky Esser. If she is here, can someone let me know?
This is
Okay.
Dawn Lyons. She is not.
Thank you. Mary Sizer,
I would vote yes, but I think I'll abstain because our center's involved. Thank you.
thank you. Dee Dee Formaster,
You're muted.
Probably also should abstain because like Mary said, it's a little, we're involved in the vote.
thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Raquel O'Neill,
Aye.
Ace Patrick,
Aye.
Linda Vega,
Aye.
Julie Weissman Steinbach,
Aye.
and Peter Whittingham.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. It's actually pretty now. I'd like to suggest we take a 10-minute break. If that's agreeable to everybody.
This is Dawn Lyons. I think that's a great idea to take a 10-minute break.
So, according to your clock, what time is that?
Well, it's been 2:31 for almost a whole minute, so I know it's going to flip over any second now. So I'll call it 2:32 and let's come back at 2:42.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Welcome back. Before we go on, I just wanted to mention that since Dr. Cosgrove isn't here, we're gonna table, and I think it's items 13, 14, 15 for a later date.
This is Dawn Lyons. A correction to that would be 12, 13, and 14.
I'm thinking one, I might, yeah. So,
Yeah, we had some formatting issues with our agenda before it was finalized and the numbers kept going off track. So I apologize for that. And I'll just go ahead and jump in and let you guys know what the correct numbers are if I have to.
great, thank you so much. Okay, so we're gonna, we did item 19 yesterday. So we're gonna go on to item 20, which is Dawn's. So take it away, Dawn.
Thank you. This is Dawn Lyons. Item number 20 is discussion and make possible council recommendations regarding SILC resource development opportunities and co-sponsoring disability employment fairs. One of the things I wanted to mention was that Jennifer Kane from the Department of Education, who's a SILC member, invited me to participate and be a partner on a grant application that they're submitting as the primary applicant. The partners Pathways to Partnerships is what it's called through the Rehabilitation Services Administration. And they have mandatory partners as vocational rehabilitation and the Centers for Independent Living. And so Mary's one of the applicants on that as well. So it's an honor, and I'm super excited to say that we're working on this and the SILC is included, and we're hoping to include a little bit of extra funding for a youth outreach specialist position that works with this grant in particular to address transitions and educate regarding transitions. There's a lot more to it, but until it's finalized, until we know for sure if we're going to receive that award, I'll hold off on the details for now, but it's really to promote partnerships within our state. And I think that it sounded like we were already moving in that direction between vocational rehabilitation and the Department of Education. So it's great that we're including independent living now as well, or that the feds are including independent living now. So I wanted to mention that. And then as far as the youth outreach specialist position goes, I also would like to apply for one of the goals in the DD Council's notice of funding opportunities regarding transition, and have our youth outreach specialist be included with some of that funding as well, so that we can increase the hours for that position and just make it more productive all around. And I think that falls right in line with what their goal is. And then Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield, reached out to UNR, and Diane Thorkeldson suggested that they also reach out to the SILC, the Centers for Independent Living, and vocational rehabilitation to promote Disability Employment Month, which happens to be the same month as Disability Awareness, which is in October. And I know that October is a very, very busy month, but we're in discussions about having an employment fair both in the North and in the South. And they actually have some dates that they're working on for the North already. They were looking at, I believe it was October, either the 7th or the 8th. Let me double check on that. But no dates have been talked about for the South yet, because we were hoping, and now that we have Mary here today, we were hoping that possibly Mary could help coordinate with us. Raquel is also invited into those discussions, because Raquel is working on, or she recently had a blind employment fair that was set up a little bit like a conference where they had keynote speaker, and it was really exciting. And I thought she could really help us with planning our employment fair in the South, if not both in the South and the North. So yeah, so in Reno, they're talking either the 9th or 10th of October. Mary, I know that I know anyway, I didn't know before, but now I know that Disability Awareness Day is scheduled for Saturday the 7th. I thought, is it possible that we could coordinate with that and maybe have it at the same time? Or, we can talk about it later, and maybe you have other suggestions, but we would really love it if you could come to our meetings. I think I sent you an invitation. But that's one of the things that we're working with Anthem on. And because we're all partnering in this, we can all contribute. And I thought, what better opportunity than to have some kind of a raffle to create resources for independent living while at the employment fair, and maybe talk to some of the vendors and put together a package that they could possibly win, like resume services or things of that nature that have to do with employment, or even not things that have to do with employment. We could throw in some other prizes as well, but to have a raffle there just for I shouldn't say fundraising, for resource development for independent living. And then also I wanted to say that our CIL zombie run, that one, we were talking about tentative dates for the Sunday after Nevada Day, which I want to say, let's see, that's on the 29th of October. And Dee Dee, you and I still have to get together to talk about the details about that, but I have that on my calendar, so we can start planning that proper. But I wanted to mention all of those resource development opportunities. and get some feedback from the SILC and perhaps just get a motion and to go ahead and move forward with those.
Anyone want to make a motion and then we can have discussion?
Commander Davis, for the record, I would like to make a motion that we move forward with the resources and everything that Don just spoke about.
For the record, this is Mary Evilsizer. I second.
Okay, so discussion.
Yeah, I was wondering,
Jennifer just
this is Dee Dee Formaster for the record. I don't mean to interrupt, Julie. Were you done?
I just say that Jennifer Kane did a message. So could you read it into the record? And then I'll call you, Dee.
Okay.
Don, you're muted.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why you can't hear me. This is Dawn Lyons. Jennifer Kane put in the chat, and Jennifer, feel free to speak up unless you're having microphone problems. I understand that. But here is a link. This is what she said in the chat. Here is a link to the Rehabilitation Services Administration Disability Innovation Fund, Pathways to Partnerships, discretionary/competitive grant for those who are interested in learning more. And then she put the link in the chat. So anyone who really wants to read more about the details on that, go ahead. I'm sure we'll have more details if we get the award later too. And then she said, huge thanks to our partners who made submitting the proposal on July 7th possible. And I just, again, thank you, Jennifer, for including SILC, because we weren't a mandatory partner, but it is important to include all of IL. So thank you so much.
Okay, Dee Dee.
Okay, just a second. I'll get it.
This is Dee Dee Formaster for the record. I was wondering if there's any way that maybe the rules can participate a little bit in this. We certainly would be interested in being able to work on this with you.
So this is Dawn Lyons. Jennifer, do you have any input on that since you guys are the main applicants on this?
So the requirement for the first time ever in the history of these sort of federal grants, they required that the federally funded Centers for Independent Living be one of the required partners, along with the Nevada Department of Education, Nevada Vocational Rehabilitation, and our local education agencies. So there were 4 required partners. So both the Southern Nevada Center for Independent Living and the Northern Nevada Center for Independent Living participated in the creation of the application. And you'll be happy to hear that our 2 pilot districts, 3 pilot districts, school districts, should we receive the funds, are all 3 rural districts. And we intentionally provided that focus because of the very unique challenges in rural and remote rural areas of Nevada that you all face. And so you all were in our thoughts, and it was just my understanding, and maybe that was a misunderstanding, that our Northern Nevada Center for Independent Living, as we were developing the budget and creating all of the plans, all of the rural pieces were included within that. It was north and rural, and then Mary was southern. And so I did not realize that there was someone else who should have been there, so my apologies. But just know that as there's many requirements, if you go to the link and read, you'll see it was multi-layered. They actually announced it on April 5th. They provided more information on April 25th, and the original date to have it done was June 5th. And being the end of the fiscal year and the end of the school year, so many states backed out because of the timeline and the amount of required partners that they actually extended the deadline from June 5th to July 7th, which I think allowed a few more people to stay in. But even at that point, as people were still trying to get all their required partners to the table, we were hearing about states who ultimately were unable to submit just because they couldn't get it done with all the partners in the required time. And I'm really excited to say, in addition to the 4 required partners, Nevada included our SILC, we included the Nevada Parent Training and Information Center, Nevada PEP. We included the Nevada System for Higher Education with UNR and the NSED, the Nevada Center for Excellence in Disabilities out of UNR. And so we went way above and beyond what was required, and we're hopeful that that shows the true partnerships that we have in Nevada. Like Dawn mentioned, we were very lucky because in January of 2023, the Nevada Department of Education and Vocational Rehabilitation, we actually just redid our formal interagency agreement a full year ahead of when it was due, because we knew seamless transition needed to be our focus and we knew we weren't there yet. And so some of the evidence that we were able to provide that we as a state were ready to do this work was our very agreement, which said we were in the process of creating a statewide group to focus on transition and trying to pull those stakeholders together to bring us to more seamless transition in Nevada. So I think that will give us a leg up compared to maybe some to showing readiness compared to some where other states were. So one of the requirements is that we have an advisory work group, and we will be reaching out through the Nevada SILC as well as our other partners to elicit folks to join us on that advisory work group. And what the Nevada Department of Education has done is, whether or not we get the grant, we are going to move forward with vocational rehabilitation on the pieces of the grant that we can move forward on towards seamless transition with or without the funding. And so one of the things that we've committed to doing is creating that advisory work group for transition, whether or not we receive the funds. So more to come on that. Hopefully they have to tell us who is selected, and I'm guessing end of August into September, because they are giving us all 5 years of the funds on October 1st if we are a recipient. So by the next time we all meet, we should have lots more information, but it's a really exciting project and we look forward. Because of the short timeline, we brought all hands on deck and just got her done as fast as we could. But I promise you, through the advisory work group, those of you who are interested in having an ongoing role in the work, whether or not it is funded, you have an opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any more comments?
This is Dawn Lyons for the record. Thanks, Jennifer. You always know how to express what is going on so well, and I'm at a loss for words when it comes to stuff like that, so thank you. I also wanted to mention, Dee Dee, that because you're a part of the SILC and because you work with the SILC with our youth outreach, you will absolutely be a part of this in some way, shape, or form, and you will be participating in some way, shape, or form as well, and have say. Just so you know.
Yeah, because I kind of feel like we got cut out, and I am not happy about it, but that's okay.
Well, so this is Dawn Lyons. You didn't get cut out. We're not cutting you out. SILC was included and you are a SILC member, and therefore you do have a voice and you do have a say. It was a really quick application that we had to do, and it was already a lot of people and a lot of hands involved and a lot of information, and kudos to the Department of Education for putting it all together so fast and getting a contracted person to really make sure that it was put together well. So I just think it was mostly we didn't have time, but it wasn't that we were leaving you out or cutting you out. And Jennifer's correct in saying that Northern Nevada Center for Independent Living is technically funded federally to cover all of the other counties besides Clark County. So they were considering all counties, and they did include mandatory partners. And
well, I have concerns when I'm in Elko and they tell me that Northern Nevada Center for Independent Living has not even been out there for 3 years.
We're getting off topic. So I'd like to stick to the motion. I'm sorry, I'm so lost. Is there a motion on the table? You're muted. 20.
Sorry, this is Dawn Lyons. There was a motion and a second made, and then we had some discussion that took
Right.
us off track.
Yeah, I'd like to get a contract and hope.
And Julie, this is Peter for the record. Before you get back on track, I just read the information about the grant. Jennifer, can you share with us what's the total amount funded for the grant?
Absolutely. So what they told us going in during the pre-application meeting on April 25 is that they had everybody put in a notice of intent to apply prior to the meeting on April 25 so that they could have an idea as to how many states were interested in applying. And so at that juncture on April 25th, they told us awards would be they expected awards to be between $4 and $10 million. And so we, working with the folks that we hired both for the evaluation and the grant writing aspects of this, we all agreed that we would stick within that $4 to $10 million range. So when all of the partners submitted all of the budgets, we came in just under $10 million. I will look right now while you guys continue talking, and I'll put the actual exact amount into the chat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very.
Okay, back to the discussion on the resource development. Don, if you and I can meet about a raffle, we've tried to do that before, and there's some laws and some intricacies that I'll guide you through. But it's a little tricky. I'll give you a heads up on that to begin with.
Dawn Lyons, thank you, Mary. I appreciate any help you can offer.
Is there any other discussion? I don't see any here. All the favor, please say aye. Aye. Did you get that?
Do we need to restate the motion just so people remember what they're voting on at this point?
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that, sorry.
Evander, would you mind just repeating what your motion was?
I motion that we accept Don's, sorry, I was answering the phone at work too. For resources and all the other things that Don was made available for now I lost my train of thought.
So I
be reminded what my motion was.
Yes, this is Dawn Lyons. I asked for a motion to approve all of the recommendations regarding resource development opportunities that I listed on the agenda.
That I motion that we accept all those resources and everything that Don proposed for that for this grant.
And Jennifer just put them out in the chat. If anyone wants to.
This is Dawn Lyons. It's $9,964,894.80. And that includes some high tech that's coming out of Oak Rehab as well. I just wanted to say that.
Okay, let's do this again. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anybody?
This is Linda for the record. Aye.
Is Linda opposing or is she agreeing?
Agree. Agree.
Agree, Evander.
Anybody against? Motion carries. We're moving on to item 21. Dawn, could you speak to this as well?
Yes, this is Dawn Lyons for the record. Agenda item 21 is evaluation and make possible council recommendations regarding the current federal fiscal year 21 through 24 spill objectives and budget. I wanted to also mention that even though it's not technically in our list of objectives and timelines, we did have a council, an indicator that we would have a council policy written on the Youth Action Council, which I mentioned yesterday that Cody said he's going to work on before we go, and we will be taking suggestions into account when completing that policy, and we'll bring it back to the SILC for discussion and approval before we implement it into the next policy edition. But I just wanted to mention that that's, even though it's not in there, that is really one of the only goals that we are not either on track with or have accomplished already. That's in our state plan. We did, of course, just extend our current one for the fiscal year 24. And we didn't really, we can't change a whole lot fiscally in that regard, so we didn't. But there was one other goal that we didn't complete, and that wasn't really a fault of mine necessarily, because it was the goal that I would present our independent living training at the Nickel Council or the Nickel Conference. And although I had planned on doing that, Jeremy Morris from Ohio, I'm gonna put it all on him. He was organizing it, and he never got back to me because he's the representative that was coordinating SILC workshops. So I tried. I could have probably submitted something on my own, but even Cody and I were confused at the last minute because he wasn't responding to my emails about whether or not he was able to get our workshop submitted or not. And I haven't had a chance to look through the agenda, but I don't think we're on it. So perhaps next year, which would be still in this spill, we can accomplish that, and I'll make sure I just submit it on my own regardless of who is in charge of SILC workshops. But does anybody have any questions about our objectives on our timeline? Okay, so then I'll just move on to the budget portion of it. I did submit the complete budget tracking sheet that I've been using for the entire extended spill. And it does get a little confusing, especially for federal fiscal year 21, because we had a no cost extension and there was some agency errors in fiscal that created a little bit of, we had to move money around from the IL program. So we ended up with a little bit more money in that fiscal year, but then it's a little complicated, but fiscal decided to use the remainder no cost extension for this year's IL program. So then federal fiscal year 23 now has the additional monies available, and that's why we have such a high balance remaining to spend down. And that's why we're also able to utilize some of that money for extra conference attendees and travel and things like that, that nature. some of our salaries are going up according to the last legislative sessions, and there's really nothing we can do about that. So that's going to be an increase in what's taken from our budget as well. That it's not reflected in our tracking sheet yet, because a lot of stuff doesn't hit the books for a long time at Aging and Disability Services. So we're really a lot farther along than it looks like, as you all know, from past budget presentations. But as far as what has hit the books, that's what I have. And we should have, and I don't have an exact number. I apologize for that, because like I said, I don't know what's hit the books, and I don't have a lot of the travel end costs yet. But we do have quite a bit that we've spent on nickel, people traveling to nickel, registrations, and you know, that's in the next, I'll just move into sort of and combine the next agenda item, number 22, discussion and make possible recommendations regarding attendees for upcoming conferences to be paid out of the federal fiscal year 23 budget, because that's really what's going to clean up a lot of it. As long as we obligate it, that'll clean up a lot of the federal fiscal year 23 excess dollars that we need to spend down. So before I move into the 22 list of conferences that we could use that money for, does anybody have any other questions about the budget? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into 22 then, and I'll just ask for, so I'll list, oh, Mary?
Yeah, I do have a question. Don, thank you for the presentation yesterday. You had mentioned that the IL program, $35,000 was taken from the IL program and moved into SILC funding. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, my question is, okay, then we discussed the ARPA money, and they're getting $1 million, some of $1 million to work on the, which I think is wonderful, on reducing the list. And then also for the Blind Connect to provide the training orientation, the cane training. But my question is, with the understanding that if programs are getting additional funding from other funding sources, will the IL program ever get that $35,000 back? I guess is my question. Or is this a permanent change in the budget?
This is Dawn Lyons for the record. The budget, we'll have to work on that for our next state plan. My thought behind that personally was that we would be putting more into our Youth Action Council and supporting that and supporting their development a little bit more, and also our resource development a little bit more. Plus, as you might be aware, the salaries for state employees are going up, and of course that's going to cut into our resource budget as well. But there is an opportunity here now that you mention it, and I can't say exactly how much. I don't think it's a whole 35,000, but we could technically take some of that extra funding from federal fiscal year 23 that and obligate it for federal fiscal year 24's independent living program. We could put some of that money that's in excess this year into next year's IL program, and I believe we are able to do that as long as we obligate it in this year. But as far as in the future goes, that's going to be up to the SPIL work group and how they develop the budget.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think I can go through the list of the conferences now.
Yes.
The first one that I have on my list is the Nickel Conference, which is the National Center for Independent Living Conference, July 24th through 27th this year, and then again in July of next year. And I was thinking if we approve it, we can pay for any SILC members who would like to attend with some of that excess funding that we have from this year for both years. And then the next one I have is April, which is the Association of Programs for Rural Independent Living. This year in October, since it's in October, this year is the only year that we can obligate for with this year's money, which it's October 12th through 14th, but the 12th is only the youth conference, so it's technically the 13th and 14th. And then the next one I have is Iowa Association for People Supporting Employment First, or APSE, this year in September on the 26th through the 28th. I know that's kind of an obscure conference, but I've been talking to people in Iowa, and I think it would be valuable information to bring back. Then I really would like to ask that someone attend that with me from the SILC. I'm not sure who would like to volunteer for that or who has time on September 26th through 28th, but I would like a companion on that trip so that we can attend different workshops. And then the International Division on Career Development and Transition, or the DCDT conference, is in Reno this year on October 18th through the 21st. And we really need to take advantage of them being local this time. I think it's important for anybody who can attend that to attend that. Jennifer Kane can say a little bit more about that if you're interested in what that is all about. But I'll let anyone ask questions after I go through this list. And then I have SILC Congress. We have tentative date of March 11th through 14th of 2024, and Disability Awareness Day and Pumpkin Palooza in October. Both dates in October 7th, and I think you said October 28th, Mary, for Pumpkin Palooza. We definitely want to, I'm thinking we could sponsor those with a certain amount of sponsorship money, and attend them as well with a vendor table. So any questions or thoughts on all those conferences? Is anyone interested in any specific ones? Or I know it's hard to commit to something that's a year in advance, but if you already know that you'd like to go, I welcome your feedback and your information if you'd like to speak now.
This is Linda Vivoda for the record. Dawn, what did you say for September 26th through 28th? What is that again?
That's the Iowa Association for People Supporting Employment First.
I would like to attend with you.
Great.
Ron, this is truly, I'd like to go to the Congress again.
You got a ticket to go
This is Dee Dee Formaster for the record. I'd really like to go to the April conference.
You're going, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you want.
So this is Dawn Lyons for the record. It's great. I don't mind you speaking up if we already know, that's fine. As you might know already, we've already started taking registrations. Wendy has already started processing the travel for April conference.
I only said that because Lucky Dee Dee actually won the prize to go for free registration. That's the only reason I said it like that.
Yeah, this is Dawn Lyons. So yeah, Dee Dee won free registration to April at SILC Congress last year. So it might benefit you to go to SILC Congress if anyone's interested next year.
Dawn, this is Peter. I talked to Dee Dee, and she convinced me that it would be wonderful for not just me, but my daughter to attend the April. So put my name down for the April conferences.
Got it.
Yeah, I have to admit that my sister will tell you that ever since I was a little kid, I always won all the good prizes out of the race. Even when she exchanged tickets with me, I still went off of hers.
I'm taking you to the casino.
Dawn, did you say Disability Awareness Day is happening in Reno?
Oh, well, there's a pumpkin palooza that's happening in,
Pumpkin Palooza.
I guess it's Sparks actually, but yeah.
Yeah, it's in Sparks, right? It's
Yeah.
It's over, yeah.
Great.
I know Wendy went to that last year, right? Was it last year or
Yeah.
year before? So I guess depending on the weather and stuff and transportation, if I might be able to help with that.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, if the weather's really bad, like it was that one year, Wendy stood out in the rain without anything, without and it was cold and rainy, and that would not be so great for me. But yeah, depending on the weather and stuff, maybe we can arrange, you know, if Wendy's going, maybe we can arrange a ride again, and I can help out because it's fairly close to where I live.
Yeah, this is Dawn Lyons, and even if Wendy can't go this year, and I come up there, I can help with transportation.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Did you say there was something else happening up here in Reno, or just that?
Yes, there's
there something else?
the International Division on Career Development and Transition, and that's
Oh, okay.
October 18th through the 21st.
Okay. Okay, well, definitely Pumpkin Palooza for me.
Okay.
And then, you know, whoever's available, whether it's you or whomever, you know, we can arrange to go and pass out candy.
Okay, and this is Dawn Lyons. If anybody else wants to think about it or wants to attend one of these and thinks of it later, please just send me an email and let me know. And I'll make sure Wendy gets you on the list. So when she starts making those registrations, she gets you. And so I guess the motion Obioma says I'd be open to considering the Pumpkin Palooza. I just have to confirm some scheduling things. Okay. No problem. And then, yeah, and we do have some time on these things, but October is going to come up quicker than you think. Always does. So I guess I'm looking for a motion to approve that. And you may want to consider what I said about taking some of our budget, our excess budget, and putting it back into the IL program for federal fiscal year 24 as well. Jennifer Kane put in the chat. I will be presenting at DCDT, and we are paying for 103 Nevada educators to not only attend, but also have CEC and DCDT memberships for a year. That's awesome.
That's great. Do we need to have a discussion about moving somebody to the IL?
Well, I would have to, so this is Dawn Lyons. I would have to do a little bit more drilling down to see how much money exactly we could put back into IL funding after all of these conferences are paid for as well. I don't know how much will be left necessarily. So it's up to you guys to either make a motion to put it you know, to limit the amount of people that can go to these conferences and put it, you know, a little bit more back into IL, or to just approve all these conferences, and if there's some left, to put it back in IL. So I guess I'm looking for a motion in one of those regards, and then we could have some discussion on it more if you want.
This is truly my first time for the record. I think sending folks to conferences should be our priority. And then whatever is left should go to IL.
This is Dee Dee Formaster for the record. And I'm going to tell you honestly, because I am on the outside and have been for 20 some odd years. And I do want to tell you that when you don't attend conferences, you get burned out, because remember what we teach about peer support. If you don't have peer support, you literally get so burned out that you can hardly function. And so conferences, I don't think people realize how important they are to revive all of us, and also help us to have a good grasp on the educational level and on what is going on out there in the real world. And we realize sometimes, you know, we're always abreast to what is happening here in the state of Nevada, but it's wonderful to get out there and see what other states are doing. Like there's one state that I spoke to at the SILC conference last year that funds all their CILs through money follows the person. The funds are given directly to them, and they manage those funds. And that helps with all of their centers for independent living. And they have actually been able to grow to cover their entire state. And so it's ideas like that that you really need to be able to access, and conferences are vital. Thank you.
This is Dawn Lyons. I agree, Dee Dee. I think there's a level of networking and support nationally that you get from these conferences that you can't get anywhere else. And it's so important to keep in touch with those. And they like you said, they ignite your enthusiasm for independent living again. They get you back on track if you start to feel a little burnt out.
Well, I know that I feel revived when I come back from conferences. I feel ready to take on the world. And that's the way all of us need to feel when we're operating a center for independent living, or if we just are a SILC member. We need to be enthusiastic and full of lots of inspiration when we come back from these conferences to, you know, help spread that hope and enthusiasm amongst all of our colleagues.
Posted something in the chat.
Thank you. This is Dawn Lyons. Obioma typed. I agree with you, Linda, 100%. I think she meant Dee Dee. Conferences are a great opportunity for networking, peer support, consulting, and data to support change in our own state. Plus, you are right, burnout is real. having those moments to bounce idea off others really aids in rejuvenating us to our whys. We all do this. Well said, Dawn. Thank you. Thank you, Obioma.
This is Joy for the record. I'm gonna make a motion that we use the extra penny, the first support folks going to conferences, and if there's any excess, it gets put towards the IL program.
This is Linda Voda for the record. I second that motion for the money to go to IL after all people have gone to conference first.
Okay. Any more discussion? I don't see any hands. So all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any against? Okay, Donnie, you got your marching orders.
I got my marching orders for sure.
Okay. We're gonna move on to item 23, which is just a formality. Because Governor Lamar put an order to send all state employees back to the office by July 1st. However, SILC is autonomous and doesn't have to abide by that. So we would like a motion to allow SILC employees to work remotely.
Havana Davis for the record. I motion that all SILC employees be able to work remotely for as long as they like.
This is Ace. I second that.
Do we need any discussion?
I just have a question. This is Linda Voda for the record. Are you still paying rent on the building that you guys are not using and you all are working remotely? And if so, is it a cost efficient thing for people to be working out of the building versus working remotely?
This is Dawn Lyons. Great question, Linda. So technically, rent is wrapped into infrastructure. It's an infrastructure fee from Aging and Disability Services, which includes our laptops that are connected to the state, which we need in order to do the mandatory state trainings and things like that, and our timesheets and so forth. And so it's not something that can be separated out necessarily. And I wasn't real happy when I heard that either, because I thought rent should be separate, but it's not. So, you know, that may be something that once the SILC has finalized their 501c3 status, which I'm still working on, you know, give me time, that we could eventually create our own infrastructure. I know that we're looking at least 11,000 just to get it started, but and which we don't have in our budget right now, but it's something that we could look at in our next spill or in a future spill, depending on how quickly we want that to happen, if we do want that to happen. So, you know, it's just something to think about, but it's really, I can't even remember how much it is at this point. I want to say it's like $6,000 a year. So it's not a whole lot, but and I could be wrong on that number, but that's just off the top of my head what I think I remember, because they did change it recently, because they moved from office buildings. But since we do have state equipment, we are required to go into that Aging and Disability Services office once a month to do computer updates, network updates. And so we do need to share that space for now. But that, like I said, that's I wish I could change that and separate it out, but I can't.
Is there any more discussion?
Julie, this is Peter for the record, and the question maybe for you or Dawn, do we have a telecommuting policy for the organization, or is it left up to the individual workers, staff members to manage time, accountability, etc.?
I can take that, Julie, if you want.
Yeah.
This is Dawn Lyons. So the SILC doesn't actually need a telecommuting policy unless they have their own infrastructure for their staff. Right now, Aging and Disability Services are technically Wendy's and my employer, and including Cody, because he's a contracted Aging and Disability Services employee. And so we really have to follow their telecommuting policy.
Okay.
But they do have one in place, and they are very accommodating in that regard, because we already just filled them out again. But like Julie said, this is a formality, and the SILC does need to be aware and make that decision for themselves, whether their staff should be working at the Office of Aging and Disability, or if we should work more autonomously with the SILC from remote locations or from home.
Okay. Thanks.
And this is Ace, and I've always been of the mindset that if Dawn and Wendy don't mind working from home, and if that's preferable, because I know that they get a lot of work done, and that I go with whatever they want in regards to whether they're working out of a building, an office with ADSD, or whether they're working from home and remotely. I'm well aware of the amount of work that they do get done. And they've been working remotely now for what, 3 years, Dawn? I mean, so it's not a new thing. It is unfortunate that we're still having to, we're connected and we're paying some rent, but I think that will eventually be rectified. And I think you're right, Dawn, from my memory, it was like around 5,000 or 6,000. So, but you said they might have increased it a little bit. But as far as I'm concerned, they're all set up, and they've been set up for 3 years. So it's a formality just to say that, yes, we recognize that they are working remotely, and I'm on board with whatever the three of them, actually, with even Cody, want, what works best for them.
Sorry, may I just add something? This is Dawn Lyons. Let me just add to the notion, so you guys have a clear understanding that the SILC, or I mean, Aging and Disability Services is allowed to take 5% of our resources for their admin, and our rent or our infrastructure fee comes out of that. So even if we paid for our own separately, we would still be paying them that 5%, because that's the federal rule, just so you know.
Okay, CD, and then we're going to call the question.
I think it depends upon what they are most comfortable with, because they're the ones who are working the jobs. We are not. And my feeling on this situation, which it has never been a secret, the 501c3 and getting away from the state as quickly as possible is my feeling. So that's my word on it, but whichever way you feel comfortable and your staff, Dawn.
This is Dawn Lyons for the record. Just, I can speak for myself. I can't speak for Wendy or Cody. But I can say that for myself, I get about twice as much done from working from home that I do when I'm in an office surrounded by people interrupting me constantly. So just like to say I prefer it because I can do my job a lot easier and better and more autonomously in that regard.
Okay, I'd like to call the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any against? Motion carried. Okay, the last thing before public comment. We need to talk about our October meeting. And we need to move. Well, the proposal is to move the date of a week to the 4th and the 5th because of the April conference. Does anyone have any strong feelings? Dawn?
This is Dawn Lyons. I really apologize if it messes with anybody's schedule to change the meeting dates. I know a lot of you, especially ex officios, have really busy calendars and aren't able to move things around. But because April conference overlaps with our scheduled SILC meeting, and there's so many of us that want to go to April conference, I thought it'd be in our best interest to bump it up a week to October 4th and 5th. So I just wanted to explain my rationale behind that. Dawn Lyons for the record. Sorry, Julie. I also wanted to ask, because also in this agenda item is make recommendations regarding future meeting agenda items. I'd like to add an agenda item next time and possibly ongoing for the regional reps from Aging and Disability Services to provide updates to the SILC, since they often find out about local things happening before we do, or sometimes we don't find out about it and they know that they do know. So I know Julie and I invited them to the next meeting, but I wanted to mention that to everyone, and so that we're all on the same page.
I'm just checking one thing.
Julie, this is Savannah for the record. Do we need a motion, or is this we're just gonna do it?
Don't do anything. Do we need a motion?
So if I say what the motion was that we're looking for and someone agrees, they can just say so moved. So I think we're looking for a motion for the next SILC meeting to be on October 4th and 5th at 1 p.m. each day.
Amanda Davis for the record, so moved.
This is Ace. I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any again?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. So, we've reached public comment. Yay! Dawn, would you read our preamble?
I certainly will. This is Dawn Lyons. No action may be taken upon a matter raised under public comment period unless the matter itself has been specifically included on an agenda as an agenda item. To provide public comment telephonically, dial 1-253-215-8782 US Tacoma. When prompted to provide the meeting ID, enter 929-904-1434. The password for phoning in is 707401. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Persons making comment will be asked to begin by stating their name for the record and to spell their last name and provide the secretary with written comments.
Dawn, can you hear me? Dawn, for the record, this is Peter Whittingham, Whittingham. I'm a SILC board member, and I also am the chair for the Down Syndrome Organization of Southern Nevada. While these are two quick announcements, and while they may not be specifically mentioned in the agenda, they're related to items that have been discussed on the agenda in different ways. The first announcement, and I thought this would have been on the agenda somehow, we would have discussed it somehow, but this council was very supportive in Assembly Bill 116, the Down Syndrome Information Act, which has passed, and also Assembly Bill 259, which talks about the transition from sub-minimum wages and address the issue of the Medicaid waiver. Those two bills were passed, and the governor will be at Betty's Village on Monday, July the 17th at 3:30 to sign those bills. And so if there are any members here present who would have time and want to be there, it's be a wonderful occasion for us all as a group to come out and celebrate the passing of those two bills, which affects our service population. Again, it will be at Betty's Village, the Opportunity Betty's Village, and Betty's Village is at 7755 Oquendo Road. And the event is scheduled for 3:30 p.m. on July the 17th. The other is a little bit more related to my own organization, and in accordance with announcement for events, I am also announcing and inviting all our service providers here to participate in our body walk. This year it will be at Town Square as it was last year. Last year, wonderful event. We had over 1,000 people who attended. This year, we're planning to double that amount. The theme for this year is to walk behind, march behind your banners, but walk hand in hand in support of inclusion for all. And it's all about supporting our service population of Down syndrome and all members of the IDD community as well. Again, it will be on October the 8th, Sunday, from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. And I would love to see any number of our partners participate in our resource fair to provide their services to our service population. Thank you. Julie, you were there last year. I hope to see you again this year, Julie.
You will.
Okay, wonderful.
Cody and then Dawn.
Oh, hi, this is Cody for the record. I was just doing a clap emoji for Peter's announcement. I don't have anything else to add.
Okay.
Thank you, Cody.
This is Dawn Lyons. I didn't have my hand up either. I was thumbs up to the buddy walk. And I actually think I can make it this year too.
Wonderful.
Any other public comments? Oh, Stephen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Stephen Cohen for the record. I have a few more than 2 announcements, but I'll keep them very brief. The first one is Monday at 10 a.m. Note that was a time change from the original time of 1 p.m. is the first disability forum with Assemblywoman Brown May. In addition, the August and October forms have been canceled, so the next one after Monday will be in December. Please refer to the schedule that was sent out on June 15th. For the schedule of December and after. Next on Monday, and I believe Dawn, Havander, potentially John and I are all participating in this, is Dr. Cosgrove's Vote Nevada is having a kickoff meeting for Nothing About Us Without Us. That was on the agenda, but I guess she couldn't be here either day. And then in addition, Wednesday, August 2nd, Thursday, August 3rd, and Saturday, August 5th, Dora and I will be co-leading workshops on accessibility through Vote Nevada as well. And those will cover topics such as education, recruitment, buildings, web content, and I'm trying to think of the other parts of the ADA. I can't remember them off the top of my head, even though I just looked at them this morning. But that's kind of our focus over the 3 days. And then last but not least, again, Vote Nevada will be having a mental health work group meeting. It'll be a duplicate on for either Friday, August 4th or Sunday, August 6th, both at 6 p.m. And all of those meetings that I've mentioned will all be via Zoom.
Any more public comment?
Julie, this is Peter again. I failed to add in my announcement of the signing of those 2 bills that, of course, as you might expect, the governor will be joining Assemblywoman Tracy May Brown in the Senate, and she will be present as well. In fact, she will be the host of that meeting as well.
Great. Well, any more comments? Julie, for the record, I just want to thank everyone. I think this has been a really informative 2 days. And I thank everyone for participating. And I look forward to a great year ahead. So, everyone take care. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Dawn. Great work.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, everybody, for your hard work.
Thank you for the interpreters in the cart.